civilization in history. And somehow, the war was our way of sharing our...
I like this moment a lot in Avatar for a lot of reasons. It highlights that you can have good intentions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be exactly good for everybody else. It also highlights that what somebody can see as a good perspective or see as good intentions can simply be harmful. And we can be taught that something is positive or good, but it doesn't inherently mean that it is. And you really have to stop and think about what Zuko's position, as well as many of the Fire Nation's perspective, is in the show. And then when you stop and you think about the citizens of the Fire Nation as well as Zuko, you start to realize that they were kind of indoctrinated into a certain set of belief systems that doesn't necessarily mean that they were true or positive. I think one of the more telling moments that I had was when I was working with an older coworker and they had the belief that Christopher Columbus came here peacefully and didn't colonize the land, but, settled. And, there's this older story that is spread about the colonization of America. And upon me and my coworkers telling him, he was more than grateful to be corrected and to have that knowledge, to be aware of the reason why people were not too fond of Christopher Columbus. But prior to that, he lived his entire life, especially because now he's an older man, so his access to technology and his access to things were a little bit different. He lived his entire life believing and full-heartedly, from his perspective, knowing that Christopher Columbus was a good guy. And I say this to say that there are so many belief systems that we get taught and that get passed down and that get pushed onto us that we don't have the space to always assess or really think about critically. If you were to speak out against human sacrifices however many years ago, you'd be considered a heretic. You'd be considered somebody who needs to be removed from society. You'd be seen as crazy and all of these things that are negative towards what the social status would have upheld at the time. And I have a very strong feeling that once we start to look back on many religions and their belief systems that are being pushed onto people and the narratives, the constructs that are held within them, I think we're going to have the same kind of emotional whiplash when we start to advance and expand our consciousness as a society, or as a collective consciousness altogether, to be honest. I think the very notion of there being one way to an infinite being is damaging. And if you do not have that specific way to that infinite being, then having the belief system that you're going to be punished is not a good thing. And then furthermore, believing that you, out of everybody else, and you're out of the entire world, that your belief systems are the ones that need to be respected the most, puts you on a certain moral high ground. And the results allow people to treat others lesser than. And as a result, it's caused countless people across however many years to kill themselves or